What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome to Spawn Guides. This is the series where I share all of the most common spawn locations as well as how they behave on every map in Black Ops 3. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how spawns work in Team Deathmatch, and we're going to be using Stronghold for example. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so the way this series is going to work is for the first few episodes here, I'm just going to cover one game mode at a time, and we're going to go into great depth into how the spawns behave on that one game mode, and I'll use one map as an example for that for each of these episodes. Now once we've covered all of that and we know how the spawns behave in a particular game mode, each episode from there on will just cover one map, and then we'll cover all of the game modes for that one map. And I'm not covering every single game mode in the game, just probably 4 game modes or so. If you haven't already seen the prelude to this series, I highly recommend going and checking that out first, because it really explains how the spawn logic itself works, and I just feel like that is something that's necessary to understand exactly what I'll be talking about throughout this series. So for Team Deathmatch, I wanted to break this down into its most basic form first. And this is what the general Treyarch map is laid out like. It's a linear map, so it's going to have more of a rectangular shape. It's going to be elongated. It's not going to be like a square or a circle. And the flow of traffic is usually from one end of the map to the other using these various lanes. It'll have 3 lanes to it, and then one of those lanes is going to have an option to cut into the middle of the map, whereas the opposite lane to that usually has like a long flank around the map with no option to cut in towards the middle. This is the general layout that can be applied to pretty much every map in the game. There might be an exception or two to this, but most of the maps are laid out this way. As for the spawns on these maps, when you just look at this general layout, it's very simple. There's usually a left side spawn area, a center spawn area, and a right side spawn area for each end of the map. If you understand this and can apply it to all of the different maps, this is going to go a long way into predicting spawns for you if you're somewhat new to understanding how spawns work in this game. Now keep in mind, these are just very general spawn areas. As we know now, there are tons of spawn locations in Black Ops 3, especially compared to previous Call of Duties, but we're going to be kind of clustering these spawns up into general spawn areas, because you don't really need to know the exact square foot that an enemy is spawning in. You just want to know the general area. Are they spawning on the left side, middle, or the right side? So just to show you an example of how this applies to the maps, here's the map Stronghold. This is the one we're going to be looking at today in a whole lot more depth than we're looking at it right now. But as you can see, it's got that 3-lane design. One of those lanes has a couple options to cut towards the middle of the map. The other lane is the long flank around, and it's that general rectangular layout. And if you put the spawn areas on there, these are the actual spawn areas that I'm thinking about in my head when I'm playing this map. Just to show you that this isn't just a one-off and it just applies to the one map, let's have a look at the map Redwood. As you can see, we still have that same general shape. Like, Redwood's a slightly weird shaped map, but it still follows that same rule. You've got one lane that cuts into the middle of the map, you've got your middle lane, and then you've got your long flanking lane that's on the catwalk side of Redwood. And as you can see, the spawn locations still follow that same general rule, but they are kind of spread out a little bit differently. Some of them are really close together, and other ones are spread out quite a bit, like the one catwalk spawn there. That one's spread out quite a bit, but that's where this series is going to be coming in. I'm going to be explaining where these locations are and how they behave on all of the different maps. But today, let's focus on Stronghold. So for Stronghold, I already gave you guys a sneak peek of this in the prelude to this series. Here are all of the common spawn locations on the map Stronghold, and this might be a little bit overwhelming at first because there's a ton of spawn locations, but like I said, we're going to be clustering some of these spawns just to make our spawn prediction that much easier. So instead, I look at it a little bit more like this. So we have our general spawn areas, which are those big spawns, and then those little spawns there that I left on the map, these are what I would call secondary spawns. These are spawns that are not going to be happening very often, and usually when they are occurring, you don't really have to worry about them too much because it's some situation like the enemy is pushed up really far on the map and they've got you pinned into your spawn, and they'll be spawning at those secondary spawns because they're being anchored up on the map by their teammates. In that situation, you don't need to worry about those secondary spawns. You're usually more so worried about just breaking out of your own spawn. Now I know the right-hand side of the map looks a little bit more complex than that initial part that I showed you with this video. That's just because I decided to cluster it into a few different clusters there because there's so many spawns on that right-hand side or the C side of the map if you're looking at domination. So those are really the areas that I worry about on this map when I play this map. And if you understand that general spawn logic, that spawns are blocked by enemy line of sight, they are also blocked potentially by proximity sometimes, but not every time, and they can also be anchored by teammates. Once you understand that, it becomes quite simple. If you know your enemies are spawning on one side of the map, for instance, let's say the left-hand side of the map, as you're looking at it right now, if you start pushing towards the top side lane, as you're looking at it right now, it's most likely going to force their spawn towards the bottom side lane, still on that side of the map. If you also have teammates that start putting pressure on that, and they start getting lines of sight on the left and middle side of the map as well, in that scenario, you're probably going to force a spawn flip, and now they're going to be spawning back at your spawns, assuming they're safe. So now let's have a look at a couple situations that are taken from a real game on Stronghold. So as you can see, this player right inside the building gets killed by one of the red dot players. Where is he going to spawn? Where would you think he's going to spawn? And if you'd like, take a second to pause the video and just think it out and figure out where he's going to spawn. And just be aware that you don't have to select the exact spawn location, just the general spawn area. So if we play the video ahead, you can see he spawns right here. Why did he spawn there? Well, first off, there isn't enough pressure on the left-hand side of the map spawns, the spawns that they have control over right now. There isn't enough pressure from the red team in order to force a spawn flip yet. So therefore, they're not going to flip to the right-hand side of the map yet. Now, that leaves us with these 3 spawn areas as potential options here. But you'll notice these 2 spawns over here, they're going to be blocked by proximity as well as potentially a line of sight from the enemy that actually just killed the guy that's going to be spawning in, because he's pushed up right in towards where those spawns are. So that leaves us with one nice safe spawn area right there, and therefore that's where he's going to spawn. Let's have a look at the second example here, and right here I just want you to pay attention to where the red dot guys are spawning, and it just shows the true power of anchoring. You'll notice instead of spawning all the way at the back side of their map, they spawn up the map with their teammates when they die there. But that's not the example we want to look at. This is what we want to look at. This guy right here just died. Where is he going to spawn in this situation now? Again, I'll give you guys a few seconds. If you do need to pause the video though, make sure you do that right now. So if we play the clip ahead a little bit, you can see he spawns way over on this side of the map here. This is a spawn flip, so they did trigger the spawn flip in this scenario, and let's have a look at exactly why. So first off, the guy that just killed him, he's now pushed up and has a clear line of sight on this spawn area here, so obviously that is blocked. Now if you pay close attention, this guy all the way over here that's inside the building, he is now close enough that he's potentially blocking off these other 2 spawns there. Now one of those spawns he'll have a line of sight on, the other spawn he's in close enough proximity to that he is putting pressure on that spawn. And if you look at the entire right-hand side of the map right now, there's no red players over there. So there's lots of safe spawns there. Nobody really owns those spawns. They would be considered like neutral spawns. And therefore, it's an easy spawn flip. So that's pretty much all we're going to look at specifically for the map Stronghold. But I do have another Team Deathmatch tip that is a whole lot more practical for when you're actually in the game. So here are those spawn maps one more time for Stronghold, just in case you want to see them. Like I said, there are tons of spawns here. This isn't 100% of the spawns on the map. It is possible you'll spawn at some other spawns that aren't mentioned here. But these are the spawns that are going to happen like 99% of the time. And then when we cluster those spawns together, the big spawns on this map, these are the spawn areas that are going to be happening, I would say like 90 to 95% of the time. And then those secondary spawns, those kind of odd ones, those will be happening in the very rare instances where every single primary spawn is blocked. Alright, so now let's get into the more practical tip that I have for predicting spawns in Team Deathmatch. Because as we all know, you don't always have that full map available to you. You can't see where everyone is at all times on a full-length map. And even if you understand exactly how those examples work, when you're actually in the game, you don't have access to all that information. So instead, what I like to do, it's very simple, is just pay attention to your mini-map when you're playing Team Deathmatch. And if you know where your teammates are, it's usually pretty easy to figure out, at least generally, where your enemies are going to be spawning, because enemies aren't going to be spawning on top of your teammates or near teammates generally. So what I'm doing with my mini-map most of the time in Team Deathmatch is I'm looking for pockets of areas where I don't have teammates. If there's a big pocket on the map that I can see that there's no teammates there, I can see them on the mini-map, I don't need a full map for this. If there's no teammates there, then it's very likely that an enemy could spawn there. Doesn't mean they're going to be spawning there, it just means they could spawn there. And this is very effective for also predicting spawn flips. If you start noticing all of your teammates are really pushing up on the map, and those pockets are shrinking on the side of the map that you're pushing up to, they're getting smaller and smaller, and you notice your teammates and yourself, you're starting to get more lines of sight over there, that's when you should start to expect a spawn flip, and you might even notice that pockets start forming behind you where you have no more teammates anymore because your teammates have pushed up too far. So always just look for those pockets when playing Team Deathmatch. So that's going to wrap it up for the first official episode of Spawn Guides for Black Ops 3. Let me know in the comment section below which one of the game modes you'd like me to cover next. I'm thinking about possibly Domination next, but there are a couple other game modes that I will be covering for this series, and just let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.